The 2024 psychological horror thriller film that is The Hold Your Breath. This film is just set in the Dust Bowl area that is in the 1930s rural America. And the film opens with a very kind of a survival picture where we see there is the introduction of the character of the Margaret, and Margaret is obsessed with sealing the house to keep out the omnipresent dust. When she believes that harbors death and disease, and her obsession just stems from losing her youngest daughter, that is Ada, to the scarlet fever, at loss that may haunt her for a very long period of time, and she cannot never forget that because that is her sister, and that shapes her fear-driven behavior. And Margaret just frequently cleans the house and chastises her daughters for even the minor breaches of her strict rules regarding the dust entry. So kind of acting like a very strict mother. So we all believe that we should always have with us. And Rose is the eldest daughter of the Bellum family and bears much of the emotional burden because she is the eldest in the family and carrying the burden of the Bellum family. So, caught between her desire to escape and her responsibility towards the young sister Ollie, Rose is just silent and witness to her mother growing paranoia, and she's acting weird sometimes. And Margaret believes that just the dust storms are not just natural phenomena but malevolent supernatural forces that just add a layer of very suspense to the narrative of this film. And this is a really kind of very unsettling thing that she believes about the dust right here. And Margaret also begins speaking of her deceased husband, that is the Wallace, claiming he is haunting the family, and this moment is portrayed with eerie intensity, establishes her fragile grip on reality. Meanwhile, the storm outside mirrors her internal turmoil and creating a very suffocating atmosphere that build up the tension in this film. As the film progresses, Margaret's behavior became increasingly erratic, increasingly irrational as the film progresses. She just mistrusts everyone, and even the Esther that is played by Ashford, and a well-meaning neighbor who just occasionally visits them to offer help. And she is a very helpful neighbor and always very helpful towards them. So she is also mistrusting her. That is very weird now. And Esther provides a fleeting sense of normalcy, but Margaret sees her as a threat and accusing her of conspiring to harm the family or to kind of kill them or make harm to them. The tension reaches a boiling point during a community dance where they all are gathered together in a very kind of a seminar hall thing where we see they are sitting in a round chair arrangement where Margaret's erratic behavior just draws the attention unnecessary to the local sheriff, and where we see that the tension really boils off, and there is a very kind of slick conversation between all of them because she's kind of gone mad at this point of time. And the sheriff, sensing the trouble, later visits their home to check on the family. And Margaret's interaction with the sheriff and the Esther highlight her paranoia and inability to distinguish between the friend and foe, between whom she should trust, that is the friend or the foe. So this is very kind of a really weird thing about this, that she is not able to distinguish between both of them, that who is her well-wisher and who is not. And eventually Margaret's paranoia culminates in a very weird tragedy. We see they are believing that the Esther is working with the malevolent forces to destroy her family. Margaret kills her in a moment of delusional rage, as we see, and the act is just gruesome, shocking, and very horror at the same time. And because it's suddenly unexpected, so it makes you more feel kind of a real bit because it may happen with you that you would not expect something to come along and it just happens. So this is a kind of trouble that is now happening in this movie and marking a very turning point for Rose, who begins to fear not just the dust storms but her own mother too. And the Rose growing realization of her mother's instability drives her to plan an escape from that scene, from that situation now. And she attempts to convince Margaret to leave for Philadelphia, where their estranged father lives, but Margaret dismisses the idea, and Margaret insists that staying in the house is the only way to protect the family and viewing the outside world as entirely hostile. Margaret's mental state becomes worse as After the sheriff just visit again and investigating the ether's disappearance, and during a confrontation, Margaret stabs the sheriff in a desperate attempt to prevent him from taking her daughter away. And the act of violence leaves Rose just horrified and solidifies her resolve to flee with Oli, that is her younger sister. And this really sparks the question in her mind that is her mother not a good, or she is the malevolent force, or she is the part of that malevolent force that always the talking between them goes on about that force. So, however, Rose attempts to escape are throttled by the worsening dust storms, and one particularly intense storm traps them inside, emphasizing the claustrophobic and the inescapable nature of their predicament. And Margaret's behavior during the storm is erratic, it's very irrational, weird, and horrifying at the same time. She oscillates between the moments of maternal tenderness and the terrifying outburst. Margaret eventually concludes that the only way to keep her family together is through death. So this is what she has got to the point, and she plans for all three of them to overdose on sleeping pills. As we see there, the sleeping pills are always present with them in their room, and viewing it as a very easy way to reunite with Ada in their afterlife. But this grim plan just showcases the extent of her delusion and despair, and Rose pretends to go along with the Margaret's plan, but secretly devises a way to stop. She suggests that mixing the pills with the peaches and buying herself time to act. So, meanwhile, her younger sister, that is Oli, to fully comprehend the gravity of the situation to make it handle very good, looks to Rose for protection right here. And when Margaret steps into the kitchen to prepare the peaches, Rose lies, claiming that Oli has uh, wandered outside into the storm now, and frantically Margaret just rushes out into the dust storm to search for her daughter. She ties a rope around her waist, securing it to the house to ensure that she can find her way back. But however, Rose seizes the opportunity to cut the rope and just severing the Margaret's lifeline and symbolically breaking free from her control. So, kind of referring to the metaphor here. And Margaret is disoriented and she's just overwhelmed by the storm itself. She cannot even think what to do and what not to do in a very tense like situation that is present right now, because she is stuck from both the sides and succumb to its power. Her final moments are portrayed as a mix of horror and pathos, and she collapses in the storm, breathing in the very deadly dust, which has long symbolized death and madness throughout the film. And in the last vision, Margaret imagines herself in a very lush green field reunited with her daughter, including Ada, and the dreamlike sequence just contrasts sharply with the bleak reality, underscoring the tragedy of her own demise, which just left we as an audience and viewers in a deep shock right here. And with Margaret gone, Rose and Ollie just finally escape, and they board a train that is bound for Philadelphia, leaving behind the dust-filled wasteland that was their home once upon a time. The train ride just offers a moment of relief, a sign of just relaxation, no tension, no worry at this point of time, with the green landscape outside the window symbolizing hope and renewal. However, Rose's somber expression hints at the very lasting impact of their ordeal, and the sight of dust just lingering in the train serves as a very haunting reminder of the trauma that they once endured. So we can really see that in their eyes, on their face, that happiness, we see the relief, and without worrying the kind of satisfaction they are getting after all this mess that has just happened, and they are just relaxed now right now. And the film ends just ambiguously, leaving viewers uh, to ponder the audience whether Rose and Oli can truly escape the psychological scars of their past that has been left for I don't know how many of the years, because they were living in that place right there. And the lasting presence of dust just suggests that while they may have left the physical dangers behind, but when we take a very deeper look and we dig at the emotional and mental turmoil that just remains flat, because they are always with you even after leaving that space. So the ending of the hold your breath is just laden with, I think, various kind of symbolism that are present around. Rose cutting the rope as Margaret just steps into the storm is pivotal moment in this film, because that represents the final breaks from her mother's control. The rope is reminiscent of an umbilical cord, signifies very deep and suffocating bond between the mother and child, as we know that umbilical cord is present at the time of I think after the child is born, and then that is cut. So by severing it, Rose just asserts her independence and takes the first steps towards a new life. And Margaret's death in the storm symbolizes her ultimate surrender to fear and paranoia. Her final vision of Greenfield reflects her unfulfilled longing for peace and togetherness, highlighting the tragedy for her descent into the madness. The train ride to Philadelphia, while offering a very glimmer of hope, and also underscores the lingering effects of trauma and Rose's guilt over her mother's death. And the horror she witnessed suggests that the escaping the physical danger is the only first step in a long journey towards healing. I really like the film, and film just really blends the concept of a family drama with very horror flick and psychological thriller genre. I think it really fits well, and the character of Margaret Bellum, that is the mother and the pioneer or the protagonist in this film, played by Sarah Paulson, she really nails the character. We can feel for the character. I mean, she just knocked the performance very good. For I think uh, her talent just speaks out louder than words, because she just really delivers a very strong performance right here, right from her delivering the dialogues and acting, giving a very good kind of expression, hand movement, gestures, and showing the motherly love that is needed, because she's playing the mother right here. And just she just nails it. And the character, that is the Margaret Bellum, Sarah Paulson really is the Margaret Bellum for me. If you see movie closely, if you even see the movie twice or thrice, you can just get how she is the core part of the film, and she just carries the film so well. And that is what makes the film special about that, because that is the motherhood. And bond in this movie just was too good, because her obsessive desire to protect her children just drive much to the films of the conflict, I think. And her action, which may seem that they are rooted in love, become destructive, and just highlighting the dangers of unrestrained fear and paranoia. That is the other side of her present, apart from her motherhood. So as I earlier mentioned, the films really explores the duality of motherhood as very both a source of strength and just vulnerability. So that just acts very good at two of the sides. The character just struggles with grief, fear, the survivalship and survival reflect, and they just reflect the broader theme of the movie itself, and the resilience and just Rose's journey from a passive victim to an active survivor underscores the strength required to break free from oppressive circumstances. And it's really a haunting exploration of grief, fear, and survival, I think, set against the backdrop of Dust Bowl. And the atmosphere really makes it a very horror and psychological depth, and making it a compelling and unsettling story. And just it's a really nice movie if you need to watch it. If you like this kind of breakdown, do subscribe to our channel Cinema Shadows for more, and thank you for watching.